In our group, we share our feelings. So we had, or how we function and operate. So we have more or less, some of us are in the middle. So between polychronic and monochronic. It also depends on the context, on the situation, the people we are with. So we tend to be overall more monochronic at work, and in cultures that require to be on time, with certain rules, and we tend to be more polychronic, contest and so on, when we are with friends, families, or in cultures that there is more, we can be more relaxed.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting comment, and I'm seeing there's some contrast in our chat here with it being easy and hard. But I also like this idea of the variation and how, depending on the context, we can actually change our approach. Someone says here, it's easy to place myself on the continuum, but also see the advantages and disadvantages being on the end of each, and depending on the context which we work in. Anybody else would like to add other salient themes that came out in the discussion about? Go ahead, Tessa.
Say that in our group, I don't want to speak for the group, but I'll speak for myself. But what I kind of took away from it was that in U.S. context, our whole concept, everyone is here, so it's quite complex. So it becomes really important to be aware of where you are, but also aware of the other orientations and how it impacts others. But this helps me to be aware of where I am and how I might create space for engagement or detract from that as well. So I thought it was a good exercise and very useful for leaders and groups.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, I once interviewed a group of engineering students, and as it was a diverse group, a lot of their responses were focused on how they kept deferring to the US time zones because predominantly, that's what they assumed they had to. And so the other students sometimes had to meet in the middle of the night, and there wasn't accommodation made, for their time. So this is interesting conversation around how to be inclusive when we're thinking about time. We have two hands raised here. Mary, please go ahead.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go to the other side and maybe say some things that our group found a little bit challenging about this activity. Is that, on the one hand, the options that it's given us, it doesn't invite necessarily unpacking this tension between a mono-dimensional concept of culture and recognizing that if we're going back and forth, for example, between the US and, say, Morocco, like, there are multiple ethnic groups, there are multiple dimensions of cultural identity that can take shape. And so wanting a space inside this conversation to kind of unpack the complexity and nuances of culture, and that our sense of identity, how we may show up in context, can vary significantly, again, as other people have said, depending upon who's in the room, what the purpose is, all these other factors. And so that was one thing that I think came up in our conversation, is that we were wrestling with the activity in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I don't want to jump too far ahead into assessments, but I think you raise a great point here, especially when we think of it from a teacher's point of view or an educator's point of view, when really assigning such an activity for our students is thinking about where they may be in terms of their level of understanding of cultural diversity. And so maybe for some of our advanced students, this, problematizing this concept can be easier, and we can challenge them to think of various perspectives, while others may be at just the nascent stage of beginning, to grapple with this. And so I think wrestling with these ideas also depends on one's familiarity and comfort level, with the ideas. We have another hand raised here, Pampi Lena or Margarita, is that the last name?
Margarita, yes, thank you. So in our group, we found that we were on different places on the spectrum, but what we recognize is that the stress level, the mental load is high at both ends of the spectrum. So for the monochronic oriented, this need to be on time and not miss anything really creates a high level of stress. But also if you struggle to be on time, you're always very stressed. So recognizing that we share the same kind of emotion, although what is visible are different outcomes. And also I like to add, if you come, like my case, from a culture that is stereotypically polychronic, I feel the pressure to show that I am always on time. So that adds to the mental load.
That's such a great point because, right, there can be a lot of stereotyping when it comes to people assuming, which cultural background we're from. And because for the sake of time, I am going to wrap up the discussion here, but thank you for that segue because we wanted to actually talk about briefly about the Topoi model that is in direct contrast maybe and looks at like the Hofstede's country dimensions or these ways of understanding culture as monolithic and, just one size fit all to really understanding this multiplicity, right, or multidimensionality or intersectionality of cultural backgrounds and our histories and contemporary right contexts as the definition also states. So I think to really assign such an activity with that caveat in mind is important, and to share, with students as well, that while it may be helpful to think about things in the binary ways, we can actually, fall into this trap of really stereotyping and, not focusing on context or looking at the really rich maybe hybridity or multidimensionality of people's cultural backgrounds. So I want to thank you all, for contributing to the rich discussion. And there's a comment here, creating an inclusive environment really involves discussion around cultural orientations. So those, 3 or 4 discussion questions can be like the starting point to engage. And as I was sharing that, we just spent 15 minutes talking about one continuum. So when you think about debriefing this from a teacher's point of view, or even assigning the activity, the debrief can be longer or more in-depth, depending on if this is a beginning, thought-provoking activity, if we want it to be a reflection or discussion-based activity. And then we can also adapt it and choose the continuums that may be more relevant to our students' experiences. And that variation, as everybody has noted, this activity, helps learners to see that the variation in different cultural values from their own is key to a rich discussion to ensue, especially, and it's especially effective when the learning community is diverse, as we are here today, right?